And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Reverend Dr. Heather M. Rugg, who has the ability to see her pre-birth memories, which we're going to talk about and more. Heather, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's our pleasure to have you. And Heather, can we first start with how did you get this ability to remember them? You were just like that your entire life, or was there some sort of event that started it off for you?
I came in with the memories. It was something that was permitted to me because where I come from, they felt that it was important for me to remember a portion. So that way I could always grasp onto that through the difficult challenges and trials that I would experience in this lifetime to help me return home, and so that I wouldn't be lost to the other side that tries to pull us away while we are here in this experience.
So are you saying that you have a specific mission while you're here and you need to have that ability to fulfill it?
Yes, that is correct.
What is the mission?
The mission here is to help awaken those that have forgotten where they are from, forgotten that they signed up and volunteered to come here, who have forgotten that their life isn't just this life, and to help guide them.
Would you say that's all of us?
I would say that we all come from different places, different dimensions. So no, I wouldn't say that it's everyone. But again, because I don't know where everyone is from, I can't say that it's not for everyone. There are many of us that are or I shouldn't say many of us. There are many that are amongst us here in this realm that aren't here with a mission because they're what we would call blanks. They're just kind of fill-ins they're not soul embodied.
That kind of sounds like what some people would call background people.
That would sound right. Yeah. Yeah. So, if you're walking down the street and you're passing a random stranger, but you just meet eyes, you smile, but there's that glisten, that little twinkle in the eye. Usually that's good soul recognition between two people. But then there's those people that you'll walk past and there's nothing there. There's nothing on in those eyes. There's no connect. They're just like a blank wall.
We come here with amnesia.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have to have amnesia so the experience will be more valuable. But then, as you're saying, we need to remember as well. Mm-hmm. So do you think like we've gotten ourselves too far down the rabbit hole and we need to remember to get ourselves back out or something?
Yes, and it can happen rapidly. When we come in, if we have chosen very difficult paths early in childhood, it can very quickly anchor us into the 3D matrix, and we'll completely forget about if we did come in with memories and going back. So, it's very difficult for people to hear someone like myself who has valid memories of where I've come from and say, no, that's not true. She's full of rubbish. And it's not a lie. It's my truth. It's what I know. And the story that I'm sharing with everyone to help awaken them is never going to change. It hasn't changed. I can see how when people are so far into the rabbit hole that they've completely forgotten where they're from, how frightening that can be to hear. How frightening it is to accept that, wait a minute, this whole entire life you're telling me is a lie or it's not real. And that's not what it is. It is real in the sense that you're here experiencing it, but it's a life that you have chosen for yourself to experience, or you have agreed to participate in challenges to experience. And it is intended for you to wake up from being so focused on this only being your life and understand that you created it and you're alive and well back home, back in your home.
All right. So how far back can you remember?
For me, my memories begin just a few moments before I went to the Akashic Records and chose what from each category, what I wanted to experience in this lifetime. So I remember being in my building. I was working on a hologram thing. It was a table and I was using my hands. And in the middle of this table was this hologram coming up. And I don't remember the exact details of what I was building something. and it wasn't working out. It was kind of like glitching. It wasn't lining up like it was supposed to. And I got frustrated with it, which is not normally a feeling that you feel at home because everything is so loving and so accepting. And in that moment, it's just this innate knowing that those feelings don't exist there. And that when you do hit that threshold of where it happens, that it's your turn to leave for a while. Like you need to kind of go reset yourself. And so in my head over a loud, I was like a loudspeaker here, very loudly, telepathically, that they're calling volunteers to come down to earth. And so I went to the Akashic Hall of Records. There were others with me in my structure. I had a friend that came running up. It was a male. He had long brown hair. He was super excited. You know, did you hear it? Did you hear it? And I was like, yes, I heard it. And I'm walking that way. So let's go. And as I approached the Akashic Hall of Records, there was just this line of people following me that we all know each other. And they were all like, yeah, we heard the call. We're going to go. We're going to support you. So my memories are of that, of lining up, going in, meeting with the team that helps me build my life experience here. And in the hall, I mean, it's vast. The walls just kind of have like no bounds to them, but there's this huge big table in front of me, and on it, it's not like a computer screen, but that's the best human way I can describe it, are these categories. And the categories start from like your parents, select paragraphs of categories, your parents, you know, your physical style, things that you're going to experience, like drugs you're going to try. And if you don't know what that thing is, then they will explain it to you. Just like, you know, if you wanted to try cocaine for the first time while you're down here or whatever, they'll explain the effects of it and how long it lasts and how long it takes to leave your. So, I mean, they're very thorough in their explanations. And then big life lessons, such as I had set to experience multiple car accidents. And there was one, it was my third major car accident. They had showed me a preview of that accident, like as a movie screen, or, you know, I'm watching it on a movie screen, a clip of a movie of the accident happening. And then the absolute torment and torture that my physical body was going to go through after the accident, because, you know, my body was damaged and was going to have to heal, and asked why I would choose such a difficult experience. And I told them that it would then show people that God carried me through it. So we choose all of these things. And I did the choosing, and then I left. And as I left, I thought that I was going to have my companion with me. And he told me then outside the door that he had chosen another path and that he would not be joining me. And that when we ran into each other, he was going to be a complete to me. And so at that point, I was like, okay, well, wait a minute. I just chose all these super difficult things, expecting you to kind of just be there, and you're not. And so I started to panic, and they grabbed me to send me. And so at this point, it was a hurried kind of like, you gotta go type thing. And I don't have an answer for why there was a rush behind it. But I went into the room where we incarnate here into the earthly plane. And it was very spaceshipy is how I recall it. There were monitors on the walls. There were these like bed-like tables. And I know I had mentioned it in a previous interview I've done, that it was like a dental chair, except it was a bit wider than a dental chair. It leaned back, and they had me sit down, and they had to force me down into the chair because I didn't want to come in. And very quickly they plugged me into the back of the head. And I remember flailing my arms like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go is what I was saying. And then instantly I'm like sucked out of myself, out of my body, through what felt like a short tube. And instantly I'm in this tight, warm space. And I was into the womb. I was in my mother's womb at that point.
It sounds like you have a whole nother life there, right?
Yes.
Like you're someone at the office, you know, doing your job. And
Very
then,
well established.
And then you said something like you needed a refresher, and Earth is the thing to kind of give you a refresher? Yeah. In what way?
Well, in the way that it's way more challenging here. So if you're, the word that would come to mind would be appreciation, to be able to come back and appreciate what we have there. I don't have an answer for the why, just that is what comes in and what I can recall.
Is it possible that you were working on something or some sort of puzzle with this hologram and you needed to come back and have this experience to finish your job?
It's a very resonating question, and that could very well be the case.
Do you feel like this is some sort of simulation then, and the real world is where you were?
Yes, absolutely. So while we are here, I am still at home laying on that table being monitored. And as soon as I wake up there, my time here has completed.
Are you aware if somebody had told you the amount of time that you're going to be gone is only going to be like a few seconds and then you'll be back?
No, but I absolutely believe that. I do believe that as soon as I came in, I more than likely returned, but I'm here in this process right now where it feels extended and feels drawn out.
It's fascinating because I've had another guest that had an experience similar to yours. He was going through his pre-birth through a computer on a spaceship. But to enter this world, he said he stood up on some platform and then just kind of leaned into it. And then all of a sudden he was here.
And I firmly believe that there are many of us here that are from different realms or different planets or different ships. Or so I think our entry points can be very different. And yet there can be so many similarities between the process or the purpose of why we are here.
Do you recall what the Akashic Records look like in more detail? Like, did it look like Roman or Greek architecture?
Yes, to me, it was very tall pillars and strong lines. So I would definitely go with the Greek Roman, very, very high. The ceilings were so incredibly high. And in my building, I know it's not the Akashic Hall of Records, but my building alone, it was rounded. So the top was rounded and there were just pillars all around it. And I don't know if you've seen the movie What Dreams May Come.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that scene where Robin Williams is in that painted building that his wife had painted with Cuba Gooding Jr. And Cuba went to the wall and put his finger through the paint and then pushed out. So that very much resonated with me as what the structure that I had left behind was like, not in paint form, but when it turned solid.
There was this man that he was supposed to be your companion with the long hair.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he changed his birth plan at the last moment.
Actually, no, those were two different individuals. The gentleman with the long hair was a friend. The spouse was a different male, not long hair. And he changed his plans at the last moment. And he incarnated here. We did meet in this lifetime and we did have a relationship for a period of time. And he very much fulfilled the words that he had said to me before he.
Wow.
So, and it was tough being with him in that relationship and knowing who he was to me and knowing that the path was written the way it was and that it had to unfold the way it had to unfold.
Did he remember his pre-birth memories and know who you are or were as well?
He knew to a degree, but not to the full extent that I do. And when I shared my recollection with him, he did not deny.
Are you supposed to be single then for the rest of your life here? Or are you supposed to meet up with someone else or find a soulmate?
Yeah, it was contracted that a next person would then step in and bring me the love and the happiness that I was hoping to have with my person from home here in this reality while I'm here. But I had chosen, prior, I chose not to be with anybody for most of my life until the very end. So I think we're approaching that time period. In the end, I don't mean, right before I die or when I'm 60 or 70 years old, just the last section of my life.
Do you think people could know each other on the other side and then plan a life together? I mean, it's kind of like what it sounds like, what you had planned. But I mean, let's say if you had a spouse on the other side and then you could come here and find each other and be spouses again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Would you call that soulmates or something else?
I would call it soulmates. Soul companions.
Do you know what twin flames are?
I do. I have heard the twin flame thing. For me, it doesn't, I don't want to say that it's entirely not true, but I do think that a lot of people have grappled onto the twin flame concept and therefore are contributing um, toxic relationships as a twin flame. And I don't believe that to be what a twin flame representation would be.
What about animals? Are there animals on the other side?
There are animals on the other side in the way that they are beings on the other side that come into animals here. I don't recall seeing animals while I was there. It doesn't mean that they don't exist, but I have no recollection of an animal. I know that my cat Isis incarnated from home as one of the people in that line as a friend. So on the other side, she is female form, but she is a cat here, and she's specifically here just to be a companion. And I've had her for 15 years. I picked her out when she was 7 days old. So she has very much, stood by my side.
A lot of my guests who are near-death experiencers are told that they have to come back because they haven't finished their job or their mission. Does that resonate with you? And if you think so, can you speculate on what's going on or what's happening with these people?
Yes. So there are events that can happen in our life that we contracted to learn lessons. And sometimes those lessons are for us, and sometimes those lessons are for other people around us and not necessarily us. So say a NDE leaves prematurely because of something that they have contracted. If it's beneficial for them to continue their purpose, then they're going to come back and not be able to exit. If they have completed their contract, then of course they're going to be able to exit. So their return could be because of their personal path, what they've contracted in, or it can be because somebody else along their path still needs to learn something from them. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's someone in their family. As of right now, it could be someone they're yet to still meet 10 years down the road.
Some of these people will meet Jesus on the other side. Some will meet angels, family members, or whoever else. Do you think all the beings or people that they're meeting are just workers on the other side masquerading to convince them to come back?
For what would be a comfort for them? When I was in the Akashic Hall of Records, there was who we would refer to as Mary and Jesus, but they did not look like the Mary and Jesus that are pictured in religious pictures here. They were not wearing the same garb, but they were kind of like the overseers of everyone else, but they were not the highest consciousness. And the highest consciousness is, from where I'm from, is just in everything. I don't ever recall a physical form to that consciousness. It was a voice, and it was felt within the air, within the atmosphere, and it was a loving presence. But there was never a physical form that I remember. But again, I have only been permitted my memories right prior before incarnating in. And I do believe that was the voice that I heard that was calling for the volunteers to come here. So yeah, I do believe that they can masquerade to help guide people back, because people are, if they did not incarnate in with the memories, they're not going to have that comfort of knowing, okay, well, I'm safe to leave here. I'm safe to go back because I remember coming in. For many, they're walking this world asleep. And so that departure is scary. They think that it's the end, and it's not. They think they're going to stop existing. So they would need some coaxing to come into the light and to move their way home.
All right. Have you had an NDE?
Yes, I have.
What happened?
Well, I was 21 years old and living in Chico, California, and I had been out drinking with friends and was not making the best decisions for myself. I ended up in a coma for 3 days. I was on life support in the trauma unit at Enloe Hospital. And during that time, I was not able to respond to anybody in the room that was with me. I could hear the nurse working on me. I could hear my mom talking with the nurse. I was trying with all my might just to move a finger or anything. I was in my body. To me, I was screaming out that I'm in there, and my vocal cords wouldn't work. My mouth wouldn't move. There's just nothing. My physical body would not respond. During that time, I remember waking up on a ship, and I wasn't back home, and I wasn't here. And there was just one man next to me, and I didn't know him, but he felt familiar. And he was wearing like a jumper suit. And it was just he and I was on the table, and he had told me that I was not able to cheat my way out of my experience, that I was going to have to come back, and that he had worked on my body to repair the damage that was done, for which had put me into a coma. Now, I learned after I woke up that the doctors did not expect me to live a normal life. They expected me to have brain damage. They expected that I would not be able to walk again. My heart had stopped 2 times. I had aspirated when they were pumping my stomach, and I had choked on my own vomit. So these were the things that this individual who had intercepted me had worked on my body to correct. And I told him I didn't want to come back. And he said, well, you have to. And so as soon as he sent me back, I woke up out of my coma in my hospital bed, and I opened my eyes, and my mom and my boyfriend at the time and a couple of my friends, my roommate, were all standing at the foot of my bed. And I just started crying. And then I started choking because of the emotions and the aspiration in my lungs, and I couldn't breathe, and I had tubes, and I was still on life support. And it was a terrifying experience to not be able to breathe. And I had to wait for the nurse to come in to suction out my lungs. And she had explained again to the family, well, she aspirated. That's what she's choking on. And I ended up passing out. I don't even remember for how long I passed out for again. But I didn't want to be back. So it was an emotional, the crying was because I wanted to still be on that ship, or I wanted to go home. After they took me off of the life support, it took me a while to readjust to being back in the body. I had to relearn hand-eye coordination all over again, just like I did as an infant. The same frustration of trying to grab something and not able to reach it with my hand. My legs were incredibly wobbly and very jello-like when I would try to walk. It took time for me to feed myself because, again, that hand-mouth, I had difficulty lining up. So that was an exit point that I was not permitted to take. And I've heard that there are people that are permitted exit points, and I was not.
Do you think that there are also simulations on the other side, and that's where you went?
Maybe. I have also, it was quite some years later. So that was in, actually, that was in 1998 when that happened. And I want to say in about 2015, so quite some years later, I was in school for energy medicine and had asked my teacher, because from that long stretch of time, it's been a very turbulent and rough path for me. And I had asked my teacher, I said, how do I know that I came back? How do I know that I didn't actually die and that this life that I've been living is my hell? So there wasn't absolute certainty. And there are variations. Again, we do also have simultaneous multidimensional experience, parallel universes and experiences. And so we can hop from one to the other.
Some people believe that this is a prison on the edge of the galaxy. You think that's possible?
I think it's possible because we have so many different beings from so many different places that are here. But I don't feel that that's true for my case. I do strongly feel that I'm here to elevate what's around me, elevate the planet, help wake people up. So it could, it's not improbable that it is. And that's my job, is to come and elevate the prisoners and wake them up to leaving those shackles and raising their vibration so that they can return home.
In the Akashic Records, is everything computerized, or are there books or some sort of holograms or something?
Holograms, again, movie, like a movie, and it wasn't even like on an actual screen. It just like pops up in front of your face and you see this whole thing. The table was like a big monitor, but it was flat, but it didn't look like a human monitor. And the categories they were like laid out, and then you could like scroll as you went through it and check. And there were actual boxes that you checked, but you just pushed it with your finger and it lit it up that way. It wasn't paper and pen and parchment. It was not like that.
What was your childhood like, growing up with all these memories?
Childhood was difficult. I remember being in my mother's womb, and I had contracted difficult parents for their soul growth. There was domestic violence in the home. So, there were a lot of negative events that took place as I was growing up. There was a day in the backyard. I was about 6 years old. And when I was young, it was difficult to keep me out of the trees. I loved to climb trees. I was not afraid of heights. I was always flying in my sleep. In my backyard, I would walk along the top of this fence that bordered my backyard. And it used to irritate my neighbors because they were afraid as a little girl I was going to fall down and break an arm or something like that. And one day I was walking the top of the back fence like I've done a million times before, and I was sitting on it. And suddenly I looked to my left, and there's these two men sitting next to me on this fence. And it was weird to me because I was, just sitting there alone, and suddenly these guys are here. And the one closest to me was wearing a dark brown robe, and he had short, dark brown hair. And then the guy to the left of him was older. He was wearing a white robe, and he had longer white hair. And they were talking to me, asking me how my experience here was going on Earth. And I felt comfortable with them. At first I was scared, but then I felt comfortable with them. They were talking. And they started telling me things that were going to happen in the future, and were giving me the option to leave. They were willing to bring me back home and to mark all of my lessons completed, that my contract would be complete. I told them that my mom needed me. I was very attached to my mother. And they said that they would make it look like an accident, that she has another child coming. And none of this was known to me at the time. There would be another child born, and she would be okay without me. And then they put the man next to me in the dark brown robe, he put this like balm in my eyes, and it burned really bad. And he said, okay, open your eyes. I want to show you, this isn't what you think it is. And I opened my eyes, and I just started freaking out because suddenly the sky is purple, and I started seeing all these images in the sky, and nothing looked like I knew it to look. And I started panicking. And so the older man next to him said, okay, back it off because it's too much for her. She's already plugged into here. So he meant that I was already buying our simulation as the reality. And so they felt that they had lost me already. And I told them that no, I wanted to stay. I wanted to stay for my mom. And they said, well, the other side is going to interfere and make your path much more difficult than you signed up for. And I had already signed up for a very difficult path. And they told me that if I chose to stay, that they would not be able to come back in the future when I really needed their help. It was the universal law. Like they were given this one chance to pull me out, and otherwise I'm in it. And so I'm a stubborn soul. And I felt, even at that young age, not knowing how bad things were going to get in my future, that I would be strong enough to survive it. I was right, because I'm here and I survived it and I overcame it. But that was a big decision to make, and I chose to stay. And no sooner than I made the decision, they left, and they were hesitant. They really didn't want to leave me behind.
In one viewpoint, you needing a refresher almost sounds like a punishment to me. Could you consider that, or have you?
I have thought of it because, again, frustration was not a normal response or feeling from where I come from. We're full of love and happiness normally.
Are you humanoid on the other side?
You have a human form, but it's different. We don't have this denseness, the physicality, there's not the pain. But you are human form, and everyone that I remember seeing was human form. We were clothed, we weren't naked and walking around. Everybody is interconnected, everybody knows everybody. It's very welcoming and loving.
Do you think that you're among other extraterrestrial races? At least not on your ship, but out in space?
Quite possibly so. And I don't know that even where I came from, is that even my home or a place that I was visiting. And so maybe I was an oddball, if you will, amongst the others. And so is that why my reaction was the way it was? Because I wasn't like the others. I was a visitor, if you would.
How much free will do you think we really have then?
I think our free will lies within our choices of how we respond to what we're presented with. I mean, I was offered a free will choice in that moment to stay or to leave, but it didn't feel free because I felt bound to one or the other. I felt bound to a contract that I was here to fulfill.
What do you think dreams are?
I think that dreams are us being active in other realms. So I don't think that we're ever truly sleeping. Our physical body, yes, maybe resting to a degree, but even then we're still very active. Now, there are people or beings here that don't recall having dreams, and it's possible that maybe they don't, but those of us that are, here working, light workers and such, we don't ever get rest. We're always working.
Do you think that the planet is going to go through some sort of ascension?
I do believe that, yes. And I believe we're in the process of that right now.
Do you have a timeline for that?
I don't have a predictive timeline, but I know that we are definitely accelerating just on how it feels within myself and my being.
What do you think the end result will be like?
Well, my hope and what I think may not be in alignment. I definitely hope that we are able to ascend out of the 3D density and have the heaven on earth, if you will, around us, where we no longer have to leave the physical body to return to our natural state. How that process would work, I'm not entirely sure, because there are theories that home and this dimension are very close together. But I would like to see the present state of the world to uplift and no longer exist in this way, where we are all light embodied and not battling with other sides and other darker entities.
I would say that the majority of the people on Earth are suffering, at least to some extent. Is that really what we sign up for when we come here, is to suffer?
Well, we're definitely here learning lessons and difficult lessons, and none of those lessons seem to have a positive connotation. So I think that, yes, suffering is a part of the paradigm.
Do you think that through meditation and acquiring knowledge and whatever else that you can do, you can get to a level, at least a spiritual level, where you can take advantage of the simulation for your own benefit?
Yep, I do believe that you can, despite all of the suffering and the negative, you can reach a point of elevation and joy within yourself with meditation, with mindfulness, with embodying the light. It does take intent and desire to move through that. Some people become very attached to suffering, and it can almost be like an addiction, if you will.
What about God and the angels? Are they on the other side?
Yes, they are. And then we have some that are here amongst us. I encountered angels in human form that are also here working through this earthly plane and experiencing human experiences while they're embodied.
But they look completely human?
Yep.
Are you aware of any of the other beings that are here, like other ETs or whoever?
I have heard of many. I have met a seraphim incarnate I have met other beings from other galaxies that are here that have their memories. So yes, there are many of us here. To know them all, I think, would be a mystery for all of us. I am still interested in learning my true origin as well.
How would we know if we met somebody from another galaxy or another dimension by meeting them here on Earth?
For me, it's a resonance. It's an energetic resonance. It's a feeling. There's a familiarity or a noticing that they're of a higher elevation, that there's something different with them than others around you. For example, the seraphim that I had met, I could feel his energy, his presence before I saw his physical being. He was outside of the building and I could feel him approaching. And when he opened the door to enter, I literally like fell backwards a step, and it just took my breath away. And it was very profound and pronounced, but I'm more in tune personally. So I'm more sensitive to those things where individuals still learning to open their intuition or to feel what's around them may not feel it as intensely. So that was neat. And for me, it's exciting because it's like, oh, there's another person. I mean, even if you're not from my same exact place, there's another higher level being here. And so I always get excited about it and want to pick their brain and see what the experience has been like for them.
Do you ever see UFOs?
I have seen UFOs, not up close, but I have just laying out and looking up in the sky. I've seen multiple, kind of like a Star Wars type scene where they're like three trailing off and then they like shoot off into different directions. So that I've seen.
After your NDE, did you get any new abilities that you didn't have previous?
Not after. I had more abilities when I was younger and when I first came in. And those only stopped because I shut them down. And that I shut down because it was scaring my family. My mom was worried that the government was going to take me away from her and experiment on me because I had telekinetic abilities. And I would make things explode in the house. So, I would make vases crack or lids shoot off of pots if I was upset. And that was my fuel for my telekinesis is anger and rage. I would just hold it in me and then I would shoot it out through my third eye. And that's how I generated the response. I also had deceased loved ones or complete strangers come to me as a child asking me to pass messages on to family members or complete strangers. And there was my father's father, my grandfather, would come to me frequently wanting me to talk to my dad. And when my dad asked me to stop, I told my grandfather, Dad said, I can't talk to you anymore. I'm not allowed. And he's like, that all I'm trying to do is to protect him from making the same mistakes that I did when I was alive. So I do think that when they go to the other side, they do their life review. And commonly when we're there, we're like, oh my God, I messed that up. I can totally do it right next time. Let me go back. Let me do it again. And so then that's how the reincarnation can happen. So it was nice that he was trying to help, but my dad was too freaked out, didn't want to hear it anymore. Another guy was a complete stranger. My mom took me to someone's house. I don't even know what it was about, but there was this guy that approached me who wanted me to pass a message on to his brother. I did. The deceased brother had been killed by the brother and wanted the brother to know, but he knew it was him. And then the brother freaked out, told me I was crazy, screamed, running out of the house. So as a young child, those reactions, it made it hard to want to hear these beings coming into me and passing messages on because I wasn't crazy. Even doing interviews like this with you, there are people that I don't believe her. Something seems fishy. These are my memories, and these are my memories, and the story hasn't changed. My entire family has heard everything, and it's pretty much verbatim. So I understand it makes people uncomfortable, but it's my experience. It's my perception. This is what's true to me. So That's why those things were shut down. And I don't think that anything new has come through. I have studied shamanism in Ireland. So I have definitely tapped more into the natural healing capabilities that I came in with. I've always been able to work with animals and people. Also, when I was a young child, I was able to reincarnate a dove. There was a cat that we had at home that had captured a dove in the backyard, and I was out back and I caught the bird and brought it into the house to my mom, and she put it in the trash can. She said, "No, the bird's dead. I'm sorry, honey. The cat, killed the bird." And I knew I could help it. And I kept telling her, "Mom, I can help it." And she's like, "No, no." And she went and she got on the phone with my grandmother. And she says, "Stay out of the trash can. I don't want you grabbing that bird." Well, stubborn me, came in stubborn, went and grabbed the bird out of the trash can. And I went and I sat in the backyard in the middle of the grass, Indian legged, and I held that bird in my hand. And I just sat there in the sun with my eyes closed. And it felt like it had to have been at least 20 minutes or so. And suddenly the bird's wings started fluttering. Now, this bird had no heartbeat. It was dead. It was in the trash can. And it started fluttering its wings and then turning its head and blinking its eyes and trying to get out of my hand slowly, not too fast. And so I took it into the house to show my mom. My mom was laying on the bed talking to my grandma on the phone, and she freaked out. She's like, "Oh my God, the bird's alive. Mom, I swear to God, the bird was dead. I checked it myself. I put it in the trash can." So that was a miraculous moment. Where I was able to reincarnate or regenerate a bird. But sometime later, I was in grade school when this happened, and I had shared the story with friends at school because I was excited. It was something I had never done before, and you're young and you share exciting things. And so they, of course, didn't believe me and wanted me to do it again, do it to something else. So they went and they found this dead toad, and this toad was crusty. There was nothing left to this toad. And of course, I couldn't bring it back to life because it was so decayed. And that was the point of humiliation for me because they wanted me to do it. And there was a circle of a good 15 kids watching, and I couldn't bring this toad back to life. So the outside naysaying definitely makes it difficult for some, like myself, to want to bring those things back out.
Do you have any advice for the rest of us here?
Yeah, it would be to tune inward, focus on your healing, focus on loving yourself, forgiving yourself, understanding that you're here for a greater purpose, even if you're not quite sure what that is. And do everything that you can to bring your best self to every situation. And just spread love and kindness to everyone as frequently as you can.
After watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that?
Yes, I am.
What's the best way to contact you?
You can find me on my website, which is www.heatherrugg.com or www.intuitivewithimpact.com.
Do you have anything else that you're working on that you want people to know about?
I offer Zoom sessions for clients that are interested in energy healing services. I offer what is known as Reiki here. However, my energy work teachers have expressed that the talents that I bring to the table are higher level, and they don't quite have a name for it yet because we're higher beings that have come in. I also offer shamanic practices, and as an ordained minister, I marry couples. So, oh yes, and kitties. My kitty next to me. I also work with animals, offering animal communication services.
Before we wrap it up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
Love yourself, love others, turn away from the fear, elevate yourself, raise your frequency. We all need everyone to raise their frequency right now.
Dr. Rugg, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you, Jeff. It was a pleasure to be here with you and your guests. I'm sorry, your viewers.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.